Welcome to our talk on motion and exercise. We're going to kind of probably take you through a different kind of pathway tonight, and I want you to think about the importance of movement, but different than you've thought about, because I think sometimes we get confused about exercise and stretching and motion, and we're going to talk mainly about motion and really differentiate those tonight, and that because we have to understand that the World Health Organization said that the two things that are most damaging to our children and to our adults in this world are sedentary activities and loneliness. And we're going through a time with great sedentary activities, with great loss of great loneliness and that. So we're going to talk about that tonight. So again, healthy living, your motion plan. I'm going to start out with, so we have a couple contacts. If you see something you want in here, here's the contact number. Text it to this number. This is a text number. Text it to this number, and then we'll respond to it. So if you wanted to see the slides, if you wanted to have a talk, and I really hope, a couple of our talks, we had well over 4,000 people watch it and forward it. Forward this talk. This is stuff that everybody needs to do. So be part of our healthcare team. I was at an early morning prayer breakfast and that, and we were talking about if everybody could just do two kind things right now, two kind things in the world, it'd make a huge amount of difference. And I'll talk about why motion is one of those kind things. If you share this, that'd be one of your two kind things. If you share it twice, that'd be great. And if you're an overachiever, you can on Facebook. So on Facebook, you can go Bouch Chiropractic. We're live right now, but you can watch our old talks, our new talks on Facebook. So you just go to Bouch Chiropractic. Also on the YouTube page, if you Google Bouch Chiropractic, you'll find us on the YouTube page also. So we have multiple talks. I'll refer to those. I'm going to show you a short clip from one of our motion talks, but there's a lot of action plans on there. If you want a customized program in that, we can, if you text that and send your email address, and you say, I would like a customized program, we'll send one to you. We'll send a ball program to you, a band program. So again, we'll interact with that. We'd be glad to. We want you to take care of yourself. I just got done with a really cool meeting in this area, and they're talking about, we need to bring healthcare to human care. And one of the things that we've really gotten away from is human care. In fact, I don't know if ever that you go in and everybody is masked and nobody touches and nobody, we don't even share pens. No hugging. And so how do we get back to human care in the healthcare system in that? And I just think that together we are better, and it's really a time to say, can we be together? Can we be better? Can we take care of ourselves better? But we need encouragement. If it was easy, man, we'd all be walking and we're laughing a little bit. We're talking about, the COVID-25 and that, somebody brought a joke in and said, the buttons on my pants are socially distancing. You can eat as much chocolate as you possibly want and your earrings still fit. So we have lots of things around it, but we need to more than ever. And you'll see why. It's really curious. When we stop moving, we actually stop liking each other, and we'll talk about that mechanism of why that happens. It's really complicated. Motion is complicated in how many things it affects on our body, but it's not complicated in executing, and that anything is motion. If I just move my hands around, if I just stand on one foot, if I just close my eyes, I stand on one foot. We have to think, because motion affects every aspect of my body, and we're going to go through why would motion help or affect depression. Two great studies out of France that we compared mild to moderate depression to antidepressive drugs called serotonin uptake inhibitors or walking. And not only did walking have a better effect, that walking had a longer effect. So when you stopped walking, you stopped taking the medication, the walking had a long effect. 3-4 months after you were done walking, you still had a positive effect. We'll talk about the latest studies on that. Again, adding gradual motion to our lives and that. I want you to think about in your head, we call the 10% rule. The 10% rule is that my body is made to move more than it does, easily 10%. So if I say, well, I get all excited, and I listen to this talk and I motivate you, then you go and you walk 10 miles and you haven't walked more than 10 steps, something's going to go wrong. Something's going to happen. Something's not going to happen. There's a great video out there if you go. It's called Couch to 4K. It's just a wonderful about how we need, and I don't mean you need to run and you don't need to be a 4K, but you need to get motion. And how do we get motion in there? So again, we want to start slow. I'll talk about that. So we want to slowly get ready for it. I'm just going to go through some ABCs. I'm going to use a spine real quick in here. So if we think about ligaments, so all the bumps, if I feel the bumps on my spine, bumps on my back, bumps on my elbows, bumps on the outside of my wrist, all those bumps are where something hooks to. And so I have a muscle, that muscle is a pulley, it needs a pulley, so it needs a rope, and it bends my hand if it contracts. Then it takes my hand the other way if I extend it, and that. So those pulleys, which you can kind of see on my wrist, if I make a wrist, you can see those pulleys. Those pulleys are white. If I opened them up, and that my muscle would bleed, but my tendon actually would have no blood supply to it, nothing whatsoever. So along the spine, I have tendons that hook everything together, holds it together, allows me so my muscles can move, but my tendons and ligaments allow me not to overmove, not to tear things apart. Keep stability in there and that. So I can stand and not have to use muscle motion all the time. They'll hold. But my muscles, so what helps my muscles? My heart, because it's red because I got blood flow to it. But all your tendons and joints in that have something called synovial fluid. The pump of synovial fluid is motion. So my hand, when it's not moving, it's dying, and it doesn't take long. If I sit for any period of time and I'm not moving, this is to orientate. This would be my belly button here. This would be the back part of me here. My belly button is here. These are discs. These are the cushions inside my spine that when I bend forward and bend backwards, those cushions allow me to have motion. But they absolutely have no circulation to them, or none. We can cut them and they're not going to bleed. So within 15 minutes of not moving, those tissues some of the cells start to die. And as time goes on, that just becomes, if you think about a sponge, when it's like an old sponge and it gets all the water out of it, and then you try to move it and it breaks and it cracks. Well, that's what happens to a disc when it doesn't get movement. And so what is the worst thing we can do? It's not movement. The people that do not move have more back pain than any other population, by far, by far, by far. So we're meant to be healthy. Just a little ABCs. In the middle of this disc, in the middle of this is a liquid center, and that liquid center is the coolest thing. How we're made is so unbelievable. So know that my spinal cord runs from my head to my lower back, and when I bend, if that spinal cord stretched, it would kill me. It can't come through here, we die. So each one of these little discs, come on in. Each one of these little discs work like a cam, so when I bend, everyone moves a little bit, but it keeps my spinal cord the same length, which is like crazy amazing. Like we tried to design something like that, but it also comes with a weakness in that disc. So this is my belly button, this is the back part of me. If I sit like this all the time, that liquid center moves its way backwards, 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 backwards. And one day that crusty sponge can't hold that disc and it breaks out the back, and man, then we're way, way in trouble as far as it goes. So just the kind of ABCs with the spine, it needs to move all the time. There is no amount of safe, not moving sitting. No amount. Ergonomic chair, whatever we have, there is no amount of safe. We need to add motion to everything we do. So I'm going to come back to this a little bit, but just as a model that we need to move all the time. So again, my rules of the thumb, there is no amount of not moving that's healthy for you in that. Obviously, we recover when we sleep, and I'll talk about getting good sleep, but there's no amount of daytime awake time when we're not moving that's healthy for us. So don't think there's anything. And so when we talk about ergonomic chairs, they make sitting less bad, but it's still bad for you in that. So again, I'm going to give some options as far as sitting and things that we can do to help that. So one of the things is, and I'm going to use this in a lot of analogies in that, we know one of the things that allows you to see really well is motion. So in all of the animal kingdom, when they stop moving, they see less. And when they're moving, the brain makes their eyes see more. But something else happens. When we're moving, we actually look for opportunities like eating something or something that's friendly. But when we're not moving, we're looking for danger. So if we stop moving, we see the world a lot more hostile, a lot more negative, a lot of negativity, we can go from love thinking to hateful thinking depending on how much we move. So when an animal is moving, it's looking for opportunities. When an animal stops, it's looking for danger. And that's how our brains are designed. When we're not moving, they slowly default, and the longer we don't move, the more we start to look for the world is wrong. The more, as we look at COVID, and it's caused so many people to not move, well, we see divorces go up, we see abuse goes up, we see not liking each other, attacking each other mentally and physically. So again, we are designed to move every aspect of it in that. So just like us animals, when they're moving, they're looking for opportunities. When they're not moving, they're looking for what's wrong. And we have enough of that. And again, we'll go into why that happens. So what's a movement environment? So I don't want you to think, and I have some toys up here, I have some balls and wobble boards, and we'll talk about making a movement-friendly environment. But movement is movement, whatever we can do. One of the greatest therapies in the world, if every time your favorite song came on the radio, you just danced, shook your hinder and danced a little bit. We need movement as many directions as we possibly can get. My elbow is really neat. It's not meant to go like this. It's meant to go all different directions. My wrist isn't meant to type on a computer and sit like this all day long. It's meant to do this. When we think, and any of you that are old enough that remember, old typewriters were incredibly hard to hit the keys. But what did old typewriters do? You had to move the paper, you had to change the paper, you had to move the carriage, you had to add motion to it. So even though it was very difficult, you had motion, so we didn't have carpal tunnel, we didn't have wrist and hand problems. But when we sit for hours and hours and hours and don't move our wrists, it's not the motion, it's the lack of motion that causes the issue in that. And then when we go periods of time where we have no motion, and then we overuse our hand, well, we decondition it, and then we overuse it. We decondition it, overuse it. And we're in an injury phase all the time. So what we want to do with motion is that I want to think about as many opportunities as possible. And have little things in your house. If you're going to sit and watch a family movie, can you do it with motion? I mean, can you be on a gym ball, a mini tramp? Can you be having balance challenges? Which, if you go to one of our videos, and I'll show the context at the end, we show all about balance challenges. But we do not, and I did an interview for the New York Times and in the Wall Street Journal in the last month on that. And what are some of the things that we're seeing? Well, I used to have a play environment, and then I had a work environment, and then I had a resting environment. For some people, that chair is all the same chair now. I watch TV in the same place I play games, in the same place I work, and I'm not moving at all. I at least got in my car, went and moved, went someplace, but I can go do, we talk about 10,000 steps, which I'm going to talk about that fallacy. That's not even close to enough motion, but more and more people are down to under 100 steps. Because if you don't leave your house, and that chronic sedentary is less than 1,000 steps a day, and what group do you think is absolutely growing the fastest in that? Kids. Kids are chronically sedentary, and when we're not moving and my eyes aren't getting an adventure, what are we seeing with kids? Highest rate of anxiety and depression we've ever seen, and I'll show you a couple studies from 2020 on that. When we're not moving, we are looking for danger. So again, we want to do is everything we can, and movement brings nutrition to my joints and every part of my body, and without that, I'm going to talk lots more about motion than just that, but my hands, my wrists, they're breaking down. It is so crazy dynamic in that they took a study at University of Michigan, and they x-rayed normal college kids' fingers, so 18 to 21 years of age, and they were 100% normal, nothing wrong with their fingers, so they x-rayed them. Then they put in a cast for 6 weeks, and then they re-x-rayed them. 100% of the kids had degenerative arthritis after 6 weeks of inactivity. So they're, without nutrition going to the joint, they develop degenerative arthritis. So osteoarthritis is attacking arthritis. Degenerative arthritis is wear and tear arthritis. 6 weeks, not moving, college kids, 18 to 21. So can you imagine when we're sitting for long periods of time, we take x-rays, and if I take an x-ray of a young person, I'm seeing spines that look like old people's spines now. They're degenerating because we're not moving. So again, 6 weeks. So we're massively dynamic. We get put in bed for 1 week, we lose 1% of our total bone density. We are meant to move all the time. Not just 10,000 steps, but all the time. So I need to come up with creative ways to add motion. If I'm in the house, not in the house, but creative ways. And one of the worst things in the world, the less I do, the less I want to do, the less I do. If I ask anybody, if it's a beautiful day and you go for a walk, how many of you come back and say, I'm more depressed, I feel horrible because I went for a walk? Some of you have muscle conditions, but the majority of you will say, I feel way, way better, like way, way better. Even small amounts of motion and walks and that. So how do we make a friendly environment? For you that like to read this book, Spark, the Eric Hagerman was a FIA teacher in Naperville, Illinois, and he saw that when kids moved, they did better. And they, instead of having Phi-Ed be about the dimensions of a volleyball court, which of course we all use almost all of our lives in that, so important stuff, the dimensions of a volleyball court, or what the rules are for rugby or whatever we have out there. But he put motion Phi-Ed, teaching people the skill sets of motion for the rest of their life in that. And so when a kid was struggling in math, they put motion Phi-Ed before his math class and his grade point went up. When they were struggling, so what did they notice after they did all kinds of studies. So a doctor helped him write it, Dr. John Ratley, MD, helped him put it in paper. It's a wonderful book. Everybody should read it. It's just such a great book as far as it goes. But bullying went down in the school. So when we punish people that aren't moving, they actually just become worse at what they do. But if moving people without punishing them actually become better at not bullying and that. The interesting thing is at this time when this was written, the math scores compared to the rest of the world, we were doing worse than that. So when we went to national math competitions, Naperville put no extra program in, but motion, and they finished the top 1% in the world. Their students did in their math tests and that by adding motion. So we come up with all this complicated stuff, but our body is meant to move. That's how it's meant to move. You've ever been walking along and you're just like, oh, I can't remember. All of a sudden you're walking, oh yeah, it came to me. You can remember things because it's how our brain is meant. There's another, so this is my nerdy book up there. Now the other one is for everybody in that. This is probably, I'm probably one of the few people that read it from cover to cover in that. But desk bound, so Dr. Kelly Stewart in that. So this was from the studies from the Mayo Clinic. This is the authors in this book, or the quotes they go, that sitting is the new smoking, that for every hour you sit, you lose 21.8 minutes of life. That it is more destructive than anything. So sitting was more destructive on your body than smoking. That's where that came from. And that was a doctor at Mayo Clinic in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and really went into the process of that. Another study out of there is that we have elite athletes that have the best training we've ever seen in the world, but we have more injuries than we've ever seen. And so they said, so what's the common denominator between athletes that are getting injured? The average Division I athlete has 13 hours of sedentary time away from training, playing computers, doing stuff. So you cannot exercise your way into not having injuries because it's motion. You have to have motion. You cannot have that. If you go to the gym and you say, whoa, I just worked out, and that has a whole positive thing. We'll talk about exercise, but if I go to the gym and exercise, and then I go home and watch 2 hours of Netflix binging, and do we know that people watch more than 2 hours of Netflix? Yeah, absolutely. Man, I talk to people, what are you gonna do on the weekend? Oh, I got a 12-part series I'm gonna watch. Like in one day, like on the weekend, like 12 parts? Like, holy cow, like that's unbelievable. 1 hour, 2 hours of sitting make up for 1 hour of working in the gym. So I think we get confused that we go to the gym 3 times a week and like, whoa, I'm exercising, I'm gonna stay healthy. It's totally different in motion. So a great book called Desk Bound. There's millions of great studies in this book and that, but there's also just a proliferation of great exercises. So again, take the number. If you want something sent to you, we'll send you videotapes of exercises that are, again, motion exercises. So this is just 2020, August, so just came out on the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Unsurprising rate of exercise or not surprising rate of exercise and physical activities decreased by 50%, the study said. So even with plenty of coaches giving the extra mile and trying to engage their athletes and giving them virtual workouts, still 50% is a huge number. So athletes in Wisconsin decreased their activity by 50%. So what do you think happened to the non-athlete, the person that did have somebody coaching him? Like massive amounts of decrease in that. This is Wisconsin again. Research surveyed, University of Wisconsin-Madison, August study, 300 student athletes found around Wisconsin found that 65% recorded more symptoms of anxiety, 40% being mild and about 13% severe, while 12% were moderate. So do you think there's a connection that we have 50% less motion in our athletes? And we have 65% increase in anxiety and depression? Like, whoa, like where are we not talking about this? Like, how are we not making this part of the equation? When we talk about a low risk population as far as getting COVID, well, this is a high risk area. And these are on top of numbers that, the second leading cause of death in children is suicide. I mean, this is numbers that are unbelievably high already. And then we put it on top of it. So again, we have to think about the health benefits and globally what we're looking out there. This is again 2020 study. The scientist University of Reading, which is in England, said that we need to find ways to add, growing evidence shows radical changes are needed to influence the health and diet of children and teenagers. As the UK government launches a new nationwide strategy to tackle obesity, well, what are they doing? They're adding motion, any kind of motion possible. I think it's so crazy in that. So what does our award system become in the United States? My kid got good grades, so we go get ice cream. My kid did something good, so we go get ice cream. My kid helped me rake the lawn, so we go get ice cream. Like, how can the award system not be motion? Like, we had a great day, let's go for a family walk. We had a great day, let's go to the lake. We had a great day. Let's on the weekend see how do we add motion. Because to sit and do nothing, oh my goodness, like we need to have motion plans all the time. And so we know it. I mean, when you talk about a growing set of evidence, go into something called PubMed, PubMed, and search motion and health. You'll see over 40,000 articles in the last 20 years on the health benefits of motion. 40,000. It's not like it's not out there. And in this whole crisis, not that we need to protect people to be good, but what if we put the resources into moving this country and we put into resources to stop moving this country? Like, what if we got people moving out there and we've done this pre-COVID? I mean, 6 out of 10 Americans have a comorbidity. The reason COVID is so absolutely devastating in our country is because we're unhealthy. Like, healthy people do pretty well with it. Unhealthy people do not do well. One of the things is, and again, this is a 2020 article that talked about that it is essential that health systems consider how best to support older people to remain physically active during this crisis. The thing I hear all the time from my patients, my mom has deteriorated unbelievable during this time. My dad has deteriorated unbelievable at this time. You talk to people that work in nursing homes. They're keeping everybody in an 8x12 room, and they don't even get out to eat. They don't even get out they have to be in a room because we're protecting them from dying, but they're dying because we're protecting them. Like, we really have to think about this different. How did we get so single-sided that we are protecting people at their own death? I have multiple grandparents come in and say, my kids, I haven't seen my grandkids for 5 months because my kids are so afraid they're going to give me COVID. I don't want to live this way. This isn't how I want to be. I would rather move in that. And what are we knowing? People that aren't moving, when they get COVID, they get way sicker. I mean, way, way sicker. The governor or mayor of New York said, shocking study, 61% of people ending in the hospital with COVID. So the sickest of the sick, because most people, 45% don't get any symptoms, another 40% get mild symptoms, only a small percentage end up in the hospital. 61% of all people entering the hospital were confining themselves to their home. So they become sicker and then they become more vulnerable. So, even if you stay in your home, you can't stay in your home and watch Netflix. In March, Netflix went from expected 6 million subscriptions to 27 million subscriptions. Like, I don't think people, if people like, what was that, Wii Nintendo, whatever, where, you played games on and stuff like that. If we had 27 subscriptions to Wii, I'd be like, whoa, 27 million, like, whoa, that'd be way, way cool. But we watch something and we don't move and we sanitize it. I mean, and again, parents are so burned out and so, like, they want their kids to watch TV because like, whoa, the little monsters are quiet for a little bit. I mean, it's like, we just need to not do that. So we're going to talk more about, so exercise does not replace movement. They are totally two different things. Is exercise good for me? Absolutely. Do I want to stress my bones so they stay thicker? Absolutely. Do I want to stress my muscle tissue? Absolutely. It does a whole different thing. If you're over the age of 50, if you get that muscle to a burn, it reduces stem cells that help my whole body stay healthy. So it's really cool. Like, I've been looking, like, as long as I've been alive for, like, is there one advantage to getting older? The only advantage is that after 50, when you move your muscles hard enough to make them burn, you release stem cells. And what do those stem cells do? Your whole body becomes healthier. Your brain is better, your muscles are better, helps them heal. Because when I'm younger, my body can repair its muscles. But when I get older, my body can't, so it has to release stem cells. And they have an effect all over. And what's really like wild about it, so we know it's just not a muscle thing. So if I'm exercising really, really hard, and then you take some blood on me and put it in someone else, they get the effect of my exercise. Like, it's way, way cool. Like, we should have like monster exercise contests, and then we sell our blood to people that aren't exercising. I mean, if we ever had an activity that protected them, that could be the activity in that. And then, so again, we need to differentiate between the two activities in that. We can have simple tools to exercise around our house, and we really have to think about making our living room a motion room, not a resting room. I mean, 100 years ago when we worked out really hard, we had to go and rest. But when we rested in parlors, what were they used for? The family got together and talked in a non-moving fashion, but they were talking and connecting, and they closed their day up. So we don't move during the daytime, so we go from a non-moving environment to a non-moving environment. But what else did we take out of that environment? Conversation, because we put a TV in that room. So we don't talk and we don't move. And what's the biggest thing killing the world right now? Sedentary activity and loneliness. And that, that Mormon commercial where the guy, all of a sudden he pets and he doesn't realize his daughter's not there, he petted the dog. Then his wife says, well, your daughter went to college 5 years ago. I mean, it's not so unreal. It's not so unreal that we pay so little attention. So we can have simple things. Go, how can we add motion? Man, this is like, this is probably $2 or $3 you can get it. We can do every exercise imaginable with this. We can take it with us in that. We can exercise our arms, we can put it behind us, we can pull it around us. We'll show you just a little bit of a clip of video when we use a gym ball. Honestly, we should get rid of all chairs. Like, this should be living rooms. This, and I always laugh because people say, well, the ball doesn't really match my decor. Well, neither does the car on your back. Neither does like rotator cuff surgery. Like, that doesn't match the decor of my body. I mean, that doesn't do very well. So a gray ball with brown furniture, like, well, so what? Like, we should be on it all the time. And what human nature is, and understand this, if it takes more than 7 seconds to engage in activity, we don't engage in it. So I put my ball in the bedroom, I'll pull it out and use it. No, you won't. You're just fibbing yourself. No, wait, not in 100 years. I don't have this laying on the desk in my living room. I'm not going to use it. If I don't have my wobble board or my mini tramp or my exercise equipment, when it's in the basement, everybody that has exercise equipment in the basement, what does most of it end up? A clothes rack, exactly. I hang things on it as far as it goes. So I have a $2,000 treadmill or elliptical, and it becomes a really expensive a rack in that. We need to have it where we're going to use it. It needs to be in a high intensity thing. I loved it that showed Ninja Warriors in that. There was I can't remember if she was a female, but she was one of the best Ninja Warriors. So it's a competition where you go out there and you climb and do all this wild stuff in that. So she's a very busy profession, but she put a mini gym in her workout place. So she had a pull-up bar, she had a wobble board, she had all this stuff all over her office, and 2 or 3 minutes all the time. She'd just do a couple work, a little bit of that. She was one of the top athletes in the world at this event, training in her office, taking micro breaks of things to do. And if you don't think you have time in that, and just because I don't want to waste the time, but when you're done with this, I want you to close your eyes, look at a clock, close your eyes, and estimate how much 1 minute is. Then close your eyes and estimate how 2 minutes are. You won't even be close. You'll open your eyes way before. So to think that you can't do something positive in a minute, man, you can't. Like, way, way positive. You have like thousands of minutes, and whoever the math person out there take, minutes times 24 times, and you'll come up with this huge number, like 1,200 or 1,260 or some minutes like that. And that we have lots of minutes, and we need to use as many as we can moving in that. So there's lots of things. Even if I'm just sitting and I'm rolling my tennis ball forward, I'm rolling it backwards, I'm rolling it left, I'm rolling it right, I'm going up, I'm doing some juggling, whatever. Motion is motion, coordinating my hands and arms, but I can have a million tools with it. We can buy these little fancy things, which I can put handles on stretch bands and that. There's a ton of them out there. None of them are expensive as far as it goes. I can get something simple like a wobble board, for $25 and that. I can stand there watching TV, earning my TV time, my motion time. If we want to have our kids do anything where they're not moving, have them earn it with motion time. And then hopefully they can have motion while they're doing the activity. But there's just a million things that we can do. One of the greatest inventions ever was the mini tramp in that. And so when we look at a mini tramp, it's just simple. I put it in a high traffic area. Again, it's gray. It may not match my brown couch, but again, I'm going to get over that. I'm going to go to counseling. I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to wear mismatched socks. I'm going to get to the point where I can do okay with it. But if I'm watching something, I'm just doing a health bounce. I'm just nice and easy. What's this health bounce doing to me? When they took kids, they had them bounce 30 minutes a day, they could do more push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups after 30 minutes. All the muscles in their body got stronger just doing it. We got more calcium, and even in my fingertips got more calcium doing it. And that, where did all the studies come from? This NASA in the 70s, because when they put astronauts in space, they were worried when they came out of space that they'd fracture their hips. And they were looking for ways to protect the astronauts. And so what did they put up in the space station? Mini tramp. Cheapest thing you could ever have. You know, to buy a really good one's about $100 in that. But you have to put it in a high traffic area, because if you don't, and you put it up in your bedroom like this, you just added 6 clothes rack things that you can put on it. I mean, it just won't happen. You won't use it. You have to get over that. I cannot have this stuff in high traffic area. It has to be in your living room. It has to be somewhere you're going to use it. Everything from, again, tubing exercises with things on them. I mean, what a nice thing. I can just put it underneath my feet. I can pull this. I can do this. I can do this. I can do it anywhere. And so I laugh a lot. When I traveled a lot and spoke a lot until all this came about, my gym was a little tubing in my suitcase. And if I had a long plane ride, I'll take tubing with me. I mean, just a little bit of motion. But I have to think in that mentality. I have to look at motion opportunities in everything I possibly do. So we can buy stuff, but we can create stuff. We don't have to. Remember, the only sign in life is motion and growth. And if we're not moving, we're honestly not living. You know, if there's everything been evident, talk to people in nursing homes that work in nursing homes. Talk to somebody that has an elderly person as far as it goes. Even I was home this weekend, and my dad has not moved as much during this. He's been nervous. And you could tell, I mean, the last 10 years of life have probably not taken as much toll on him as the last 3 months of not moving. I mean, really had an effect on him as far as motion goes and that. You know, they closed the gyms down, so he was in a habit. He was going to the gym all the time. He was riding his bike. And man, all this, you know, fear-mongering, we should be saying, what can you safely do instead of don't do anything as far as it goes. So again, we have to be so careful. I'm going to put this up a couple times because it's a concept I want you to get. At the 6th International Psychology Conference, we talked a lot about it. But epigenetics, so genetics is my DNA. It's what makes me me. I have my DNA. Epigenetics is the expression of DNA, and my genes express themselves every second of every day from how it reads my environment. And in the book Spark, in the book Deathbound, in when my body's not moving, my epigenetic defaults to danger. And in danger, my body doesn't repair itself. So if I'm not moving and I get a cancer cell, my body doesn't recognize it. If I'm moving and get a cancer cell, my body's much more likely to recognize it. So epigenetic goes from I'm going to live genetically 115 years to it's trying to protect me to live 5 seconds. And so everything I do, so how can motion affect how I think? How can motion affect my cancer rate? How can motion affect my digestion? How can motion affect how much weight I get? How can motion affect that? Because motion affects epigenetics as much as anything I have control over. So if I have anxiety, which is hard to control, motion can help that more than anything that I'm going to do. Obviously, if you're in a really crisis, we need medical intervention, but for mild to moderate depression and anxiety or any kind of the mood disorders, we also know that when kids, a lot of kids are motion learners and we force them not to learn, and you put them on a gym ball and they do way, way better as far as it goes. For people that have challenges, put them on a gym ball. They do we're meant to move, but in a society that doesn't. So I'm going to talk about this a couple times, but genetics is my genetic code. Epigenetics is how it expresses itself, and my epigenetics is my body reading its environment all the time. So how can it affect mood disorders in that? Because when I'm moving, there's a part of my brain in the back here called the thalamus, and that thalamus is termed the great integrator, and my mechanoreceptors run into that thalamus, And when I have enough mechanical, so that's what tells me, so if I close my eyes, I still know I'm moving my wrist because I have receptors that tell me where my wrist is. I have receptors that tell me I'm going in a circle, I'm punching myself in the eye. I have receptors that will do that. If I damage my brain a little bit, so I had too much alcohol, that's why they do the test, because my receptors get blown out, and I touch my forehead instead of my nose. So again, I blow those out if I have too much alcohol. So when I exercise, the thalamus hits there, and the thalamus says, enough exercise, woo, life is okay, and it moves me to the frontal part of my brain, the frontal cortex, and that's where love and understanding and seek to understand before you need to be understood. It's where you feel like you want to be connected to humanity and societies. That happens when the thalamus says, I have enough motion, it moves me here. So when I talked about moods and hatred and that comes from another part of the brain, which is the reticular activating system. Big part of that is the amygdala. And when I'm not moving, my thalamus says, whoa, 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 I've stopped. They must be looking for danger. Let's raise tone on everything we're going to see when we're not moving is more dangerous. Everything I'm noticing, because I've stopped, and my notice point is what's wrong in the world, not what's right in the world. But when I'm moving, my body's, whoa, it must be okay. If I'm running, that's a little different, but just walking, man, changes everything. So any amount of motion that moves my joint, makes the receptor go right up to the thalamus of my brain and say, life's okay. So if I'm bouncing in a ball, great. So we talked about the health and nutrition of joints when I'm moving, but it also tells me that I'm okay and it moves there. So all these different moods in that. I think about if there's anything that we should give parents a survival kit when their kids get to be 12 to 18, is movement survival. Like, man, we see people like, oh, they get so excited, they have a rope, they want to walk, so they walk a dog outside their car. Well, I mean, we need to move our kids. Maybe we need to have them walk outside the car. I don't know. If you go in this whole crisis, where do people keep going? They took their dogs to dog parks. But when you went by a playground, were there any kids on it? In fact, are there hardly ever kids in the playground? Hardly ever. The schools, the playgrounds all the time. But we take dogs to a dog park. Why? Well, they need exercise. And when we come home and our dog's been inside all day, what do? We gotta let them run out in the yard a little bit. We gotta let them move. But do we do that with our kids? No, way crazy not that we don't do it. The number of adults in the United States who suffer from major depression episodes at some point in their life is far higher than we previously believed. A new study by the Yale School of Public Health, this is 2020 study in that, way higher than that. And what do we see as we became a sedentary nation? All of our mood disorders went up crazy. We're 85%, or we're less than 5% of the world's population. We take 80 to 85% of all the antidepressants and anxiety drugs in the world, and we're less than 5%. We're one of the least active in that. There's a consortium of scientists, and they put together this video series and that, and one of the scientists from Costa Rica said, when American kids come down here, we can pick them out immediately because they can't get in and out of canoes, they can't get in and out of kayaks, and they look just uncoordinated getting out of vehicles. We have so under motioned our kids that they look different than the rest of the world's kids in that, unless they're a country that has a little motion than us. But we are the most on motion society with our kids ever. Up to 1/5 of women experience depression during pregnancy. What happens in pregnancy? We treat pregnancy as a disease, and so we stop having people move. We stop encouraging. And as they get farther into pregnancy and they move less, do we not think there's a relationship when we know there's a relationship to motion and depression? And so instead of telling a woman to move more, do we not sometimes risk a drug saying, well, that depression's so bad, we maybe need to give you a drug for it? Instead of, we need to have you have motion, and we need to come up with creative ways to have motion than that. So the other thing that we have to think about and know, and again, I want to go through this, so get this part, because this is crazy important. Our body is really meant to move somewhere around 6 miles a day. Doesn't mean we have to walk 6 miles a day, but we're meant to move about 6 miles a day. So that could be bouncing a ball. It's just my mechanoreceptors have to act like they move 6 miles a day. So 10,000 steps, how close is that to 6 miles? like not close, not even a little close. 10,000 miles is just made up by a person putting some statistics together in Japan, and it's just a number that has a relationship to nothing. But 10,000 steps are better than 1,000 steps, right? So I'm all for that. But it doesn't mean I'm healthy. So we need to have motion that's around 6 miles a day, because all of the hormones in my body have a half-life. And when I'm moving, that half-life is less. Meaning, so if a hormone's in my body is going to be there for 1 hour, if I'm moving, it might be there for 6 hours if I'm not moving. So one of the great examples are, I'm sitting in the car, I have lots of stimulation, somebody cuts me off, and all of a sudden I'm giving the number one sign, or two number one signs sometimes. Like road rage is about stimulation without motion, and the anger hormones stay there too long, and all of a sudden we're upset. Another thing, saddest statistic ever in this whole country. After major sporting events, especially football, young ladies are physically abused more than any other time in the time frame of a year, because a person is sitting there with massive amounts of stimulation, testosterone, cortisol, all kinds of things happening, and we're not moving. And what is the body? If my body puts danger chemicals in and you don't move, what is it thinks going on? It thinks the danger is getting worse. So it puts more of those chemicals and more of those chemicals, and so we go over the edge of serenity, and we do things we can't say and do things we can't imagine in that. When we look at anger management, it's not trying to get to that edge, and anger management is one of the things, is motion with it. If we look at a lot of the elite athletes in the world, Michael Phelps, why did he start swimming? Because he had dyslexia and a learning disability, and he had hyperactivity and all these things we give drugs for. And thank God they gave him motion. They put him in a pool and he started swimming, and he became one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. It was because he was put in a motion situation. But a kid that's not swimming, that's hyperactive, that's dyslexic, what kind of trouble may they get in? You know, lots of trouble. So again, we need to do everything we can to add it. So why does cancer have a greater rate? Two reasons. Epigenetics, when my body's not moving, it doesn't pay attention to cancer cells. And when my body's not moving, chemicals stay longer. And so if I have estrogen in my body and I'm not moving, that estrogen bumps against my estrogen 4 receptor in my breast, and it bumps enough times. One time it causes a genetic abnormality, and that genetic abnormality is called cancer. And that cancer takes 7 years before we know it's there. Before the first diagnosis that we can make, it's 7 years, takes billions of cells. One cell to billions of cells is 7 years. And it happened because that stayed longer. Prostate cancer, because it's the chemicals stayed too long. So we have two reasons we get cancer when we're not moving. One is epigenetics says I don't pay attention to it, and the hormones stay there way longer than they're supposed to. And what do we know happens when we're not moving? The stress hormones that are hard on my bodies live way longer and start to be produced. When we're not moving, we don't start producing serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine. We start producing cortisol. And cortisol is the magnifier of negativity to my cells. It's like crazy, crazy. So if we have high cortisol levels, high stress levels, do we know do we age sooner? Absolutely, because that's why we age. So if we don't want to have it, so I have a really bad day, I have two choices. I get out of the car and I go for a walk before I go in so I can be civil with my family, or I go in and I'm angry and I eat some bad food because that goes along with it. So we talked about stem cells and aging and motion. When we have enough motion, stem cells don't turn into new cells. Stem cells go right next to my cell on my finger here, and they say, whoa, you need to up your game. You need to heal a little bit. So stem cells, when they get all over my body, they tell the other cells, time to up your game, time to heal, time to put energy in getting in a good place in that. And stem cells are, because we move, they start to go with it. We start to change everything. My mitochondria, everything starts to go. So when I'm not moving, I'm literally aging, absolutely aging. And that all the things we talked about start to just multiply. So again, when I'm not moving, so why are we seeing people we loved age 10 years in 3 months? Because that's how devastating. And unfortunately, the multiplying factor, if I'm not moving at 20, it's not so good for me. But when I'm not moving at 65, it's really bad. And when I'm not moving at 80, it's devastating, because I do not have many stem cells left. And my body's not going to put resources towards stem cells unless it thinks I need them. And if I need them, it says he's still active and moving. He's still out there doing stuff. And so just to kind of
understand this a little bit. So groundbreaking research from the University of South Australia confirmed that the act of smiling can trick your mind into being more positive simply by moving your facial muscles. So where did that come from? I put a pencil in my mouth, it raises the edges of my mouth, and it releases chemicals in my body that make me happier. So that happens when I move any muscle in my body. It says, whoa, good day, because my body is designed to give my brain a great ride every day. And when it gets a great ride, it's way, way happy. And so again, even moving my facial muscles make a difference. The follow-up on an earlier study on this, so they were trying to track the muscles of the face, and they're using little electric probes on that. So they create anger, and then they create anxiety, and they noticed that the mood of the person matched whatever facial expression. So then they redid it, and they took blood when they did it, and when I crunch my face up and I'm looking all angry, I actually become angry, even if I'm not before I do it, if I do it. So again, when I'm moving that, my risk, I little bit sometimes say, we need to like sometimes, even I don't care if it's like 10 feet away, 20 feet away, but like we need to take our mask off and smile at people now and then, and like and put them back on if we feel we have to, but not reading facial expressions. So we can help with the world in crisis, an alarming rise in anxiety, depression in Australia and around the world. The finding could not be more timely. If we can create it, even if we went in a mirror and 10 times a day we smile at ourselves, like we would make a difference. It would maybe that act of kindness for ourselves and that. So again, motion affects everything. It affects the chemicals in my body. It affects how long. Because when serotonin gets there, it makes cortisol not so effective. It actually blocks the cortisol receptors, so life seems better. So this is, listen to the latest podcast, sedentary behavior increases the risk of certain types of cancer. I just want to put it out there. There's hundreds of articles on it. This is PubMed, so when you talk about PubMed, a journal of National Cancer Institute, this is a PubMed study. This is the journal, one of the best journals in the world on cancer, sedentary behavior, risk of cancer. New research published, this is 2020 again, new research published this week in Experimental Psychology found that prostate cancer survivors, a moderate bout of exercise kept the cell count of certain types of immune cells at a normal level, suggesting that exercise is safe for prostate cancer survivors. After 24 hours after moderate bouts of cycling, the immune cells count of natural killer cells, part of the body's first line of defense, had to return to resting levels. So people had less aggravations, less reoccurrence of prostate cancer when motion was advised to them in that. So again, I can't stress enough. And so how much does motion cost? Like we can all afford it. Like if I can't afford a gym membership, I can afford to stand up and down on my toes. I can afford to do jumping jacks. I can afford to listen to a song and shake and move and wiggle and play some music. I can afford that. You know, this has to be a willpower, a why power, not willpower. And if I want to be healthy and take care of the world, I have to take care of myself. And there is nobody listening to this and nobody anywhere that's going to listen to this that doesn't know movement's healthier for you than non-movement. But do we move? No. We can spend an enormous amount of times. I just, when I hear young people tell me in their 20s, I'm going to go home and have a Netflix weekend, I just want to at least do something else with it. That like stand on one foot on a gym ball. Do something, something crazy. But do not let that happen. So again, why is cancer? Epigenetics. When I'm not moving, my body feels like it's in danger. When it's in danger, it doesn't pay attention to cancer. When it's in danger, it ups my cortisol, which is a cancer helper. It decreases my serotonin, which helps me not get cancer. So again, epigenetics, I'm going to talk that a couple times. When a human body sustains injury, cells spring into action. New blood vessels emerge through a process called agenesis, and cells migrate to coordinate a campaign of healing. That healing, so what did you see in that earlier slide? Stem cells are released when we move and when we activity. And so why do things like fibromyalgia happen? In non-active people, they can't repair themselves. And pretty soon tissue tears and tears and tears and tears. And we get really good at pain. Our body's really, really good at producing pain if I'm not moving. And so, man, when they closed down the pools and my fibromyalgia patients and my chronic pain patients couldn't move, what did I see happen? Pain increased. And when pain increases and we think we can cover up with a painkiller, my body's like crazy smart. It has 12 epigenetic pathways. So if I block pain on my finger and the pain is still there, my body comes up with a new pathway, and a new pathway. Anybody that's ever taken a migraine drug and says, you know, it worked really well for 3 months and then it didn't work anymore. Because my body said, hey, I still have something wrong and you're not listening, so I'm gonna go, I put my Google map on and I went a whole new way, so I'm here again. And then we take a new drug and then it says, whoa, put a new coordinate in, I got a new way. My body can do it 12 times. That's why antidepressants struggle after a while. Anything we take for emergency should be an emergency, and we need skill sets. And one of those skill sets is we need to move. We absolutely have to go the right direction. So when we modify 12 risk factors over the lifetime, we could delay Alzheimer's by 40%. Alzheimer's or senile dementias or any of the cognitive depressions, this is a 2020 article in The Lancet, one of the best magazines in the world. The biggest thing was motion. When people move, their brains do better. And when they don't move, and when we think about our budget, unfortunately, the average person gets senile dementia or Alzheimer's or any of the dementia problems and that they live for 10 years, it costs $100,000 a year, it's $1 million to die. It is draining the financial wealth of our country like nothing else. There is no money to leave to our children anymore because it all gets taken place. It's when you have it, if your spouse gets Alzheimer's and you're alive, they take everything up to the point of where you can still live, your house and everything. You get to stay in it. Then when you leave, they take everything. There's nothing left whatsoever as far as it goes in that. So willpower, why power? If you don't want to have somebody have nothing that worked their whole life, then your why power says, I need to get up and I need to move, I need to go. Of these 12 risk factors, motion was the big one. 2020 article, like brand new stuff. Sleep and motion can be easier to fall asleep, help for newborn babies and that. You know, we are a world that struggles sleeping. I mean, like way struggles sleeping. And it's not because if we aren't moving, what chemicals last longer? So if I asked everybody in the world, do you have stress? Nah, everybody has stress. Like everybody feels stress. So if stress hormones last longer when you're not moving, so now we go to bed, and again, the craziest thing in the world, like, oh, I'm really stressed, I want to watch some really gory, rotten, horrible show before I go to bed, which then just gets my cortisol going and gives me this big stimulus, and then I wonder why I go to bed and I wake up at 2 in the morning. 2 in the morning means that the cortisol has broken through and my serotonin has went down and I get breakthrough. So all of you that wake up around 2:30 in the morning, that's the chemical of cortisol being too powerful, and we need to have motion. And when I talk about motion, you know, it's not like going for a walk for 20 minutes. It's not going, it's moving all the time. It's trying to do little bits of motion all the time. I'm not talking about going for a 30-minute walk. I'm talking about adding motion all day long to your life, like all the time. When you get up in the morning, man, you're just saying, I'm on my toes, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm singing my happy song, I'm moving my hips left, I'm moving my hips right, I'm in a car, I'm rolling a tennis ball, whatever I need to do, I'm moving. I play little games where I tighten my calves, I tighten my thighs, I tighten my butt. Crazy study out of Germany where people took and they held their stomach as hard as they could for 1 minute. After 30 days of doing that, they had a 10 to 15% increase in strength of their stomach. Like, can we all afford to hold my stomach as hard as I can for a minute? Can we hold my muscles as hard as I can? Motion is motion. Anything I can do. And again, we're a nation rampaged with sleeping as far as it goes. I'd be remorseful if I don't at least throw in here, do not sleep with your cell phone. Blue light, you know, we have 2 phases of sleep. First part of phase is rest and repair. Second part is defragging my brain. We need about 3 hours of each. And so a lot of people, if they sleep for 12 hours, no one needs 12 hours of sleep. They just need 12 hours to get 6.5 great hours in. And without that, they just can't sleep in that. So they say, well, I need 12 hours sleep. You're crazy, you don't need that much sleep. No, it's the quality of the sleep that's going on. So we repair our body for the first 3 hours, 3.5 hours, and then we repair our brain for the last 3.5 hours. When you have a blue light phone by you, blue light of any type, you lose on the average 27 minutes of your repair your brain. You know, again, one of the reasons that we struggle. This is the coolest thing. This is a 2020 study also, and that just came out like 2 weeks ago. Nearly every cell in the body has its own 24-hour clock. A new research from the Perelman School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania showed that the way that this clock interacts with each other plays a critical role in the health of a person's metabolism. What do you think resets the clock in all the cells? Movement. And when we're not moving, the clock gets off of my cells. So someone says, you know, I go to bed, all of a sudden my stomach hurts. I go to bed and, you know, I can't really breathe very well. I go to bed and, man, my legs just start to hurt me. Because my rhythms are off, my pace is off. So what resets the clock for all of 24-hour clock, and every cell in my body has a 24-hour clock. They're just not the same if I'm not moving. And if I'm moving, they get in sync. So rest time is rest time because my whole body thinks it. If not, some of you say, I go to bed, man, I feel like I'm going to come out of my skin. I go to bed and I just like, these things happen because I'm not in the right place. I need to move every cell in my body. So think about that. Like, if I want to have all the clocks, because, if you went through your house and all your clocks were different, wouldn't you kind of go crazy? Well, that's what your body does. I mean, when all your clocks are different, it's kind of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like you get in, if your car is beeping, your light is beeping your car, you change it. You change the clock on it. Well, that's what happens with your body. So when it starts yelling at you, it's yelling at you, say, yeah, I need to take better. It is widely reported that shift workers suffer from high rates of obesity and diabetes. This is a 2000 study also, because when we're not sleeping and matching our circadian rhythm, it throws my body way off in that. So people in shift work have way higher cancer rates, way higher obesity, way higher diabetes rate. It's way hard on us as far as it goes. We need to, again, move. And if I'm a shift worker, I have to make sure I have a movement plan. And what's the hardest thing with a shift worker? They feel tired all the time. They just do not feel like taking care of themselves. I mean, they're just barely making it. They get a few hours sleep here, a few hours sleep there. Again, epigenetics, I'm not getting that circadian rhythm. I'm not matching the time clock of all my cells. My cells get off rhythm in that. And then hormones and stuff get off rhythm, and I get all kinds of horrible diseases. 6 out of 10 Americans have some kind of comorbidity. It's been forever since I've had a patient over 60 not on some medication. And most of my patients over 65 are on anywhere from 5 to 12 medications in that. It's just crazy. And how many kids do we see on medications? More than ever. I mean, when in our intake sheet, there's a place for medications. I don't care of any age. I hardly ever do not see somebody on medications anymore. And what is a medication? It may be needed in the short term, but what happens in the long term? My epigenetics says there's something wrong, but you're not listening to me. There's something wrong, but you're not listening to me. And man, lots of crazy bad stuff happens. And that, never too late to introduce kids or adults to exercise or movement. It is never too late. We want to, the common link, and when we look at societies, there's another great book I should put up there called The Blue Zone. The Blue Zone, a guy from National Geographic noticed some people live longer and better in the world. And so in Sicily, there was a group of people in the mountains that lived better. And Okinawa, a group of people live longer. And what those people did is they're motion people. They're not exercise people. They move all day long. The healthiest people, that means living to 100 and still being productive. Living to 100 and still be able to be a functional asset to the society. Living to 100 and taking care of not your grandchildren, but your great and sometimes your great-great-grandchildren and that. And still having the energy and ability to do that. And again, so there's never too old to do motion in that. A new Boston University 2000 study again showed that weight loss between early adult and midlife lowers arthritic risk and found no evidence of persistent risk. So, we have a national obesity problem with our children, like nothing we've ever seen before. And so get them moving. Nothing helps. There's something called leptin, and when I'm not moving, leptin gets released in my body, lasts forever, and says, ooh, that calorie, I'm going to surround it and put it on my hips and my stomach and behind my arms. I'm going to put it somewhere in my body when I'm not moving, because that's what it does. So it reduces something. So are our kids eating more than they've ever eaten? I'm not sure convinced they're eating more calories, but are they less movement than ever? Well, when you don't move, your body becomes incredibly efficient at taking calories because it thinks there's a crisis. So it becomes incredibly efficient at taking calories and putting them on my body somewhere for a rainy day that never comes. So how do we start? How do we take care of ourselves? It's really hard for anybody to do something good for themselves if they're talking bad to themselves. When we lay our head on a pillow at the end of the day, and the worst voice we've heard all day is us to ourselves. And so to others in that, it always, if I look at somebody say, oh my gosh, you look good, you must be taking better care of yourself. I've only lost 5 pounds. Like, why would we say that? Like, we should say, whoa, I lost 5 pounds, like greatest thing ever as far as it goes in that. So kind words to ourselves and others. Notice, when you see somebody walking, honk the horn, wave at them. Like, everything you can. When someone's taking care of themselves, it's such a vulnerable time. How many of us listening or watching or anyway have started a good habit and stopped it? We need to encourage. We need to be incredibly good to ourselves and others. You can go on our YouTube page. I have a whole balance challenge on there. But man, nothing is better. So you just stand on one foot. And what you want to do is you stand on one foot and you make sure you go a minute. And then you stand on the other foot and you go for a minute. And you check how many times you touch the ground. Then you go on one foot and you close your eyes. And you stand there and how many times you touch the ground. If the difference between when your eyes are open and your eyes are shut are greatly different, I can stand for a minute easy, not touch my foot at all. I stand for a minute and I close my eyes and I start touching my foot. My body's out. So I can do balance challenge all the time. I'm standing in the grocery store. I'm standing waiting. I can do balance challenge. It's one of the greatest ways. And all of you, if you stand on one foot for a little bit, your ankle's moving all over the place. Like you're trying to stay there. It's causing mechanoreceptors to go crazy. Balance challenge. One of the biggest threats will happen if you get over 65 is you fall and break something, and it changes your life. And that I took a class in California many years ago. They increased the balance in 65 and over. They had a program, just simple. They put a tube around them and they went forward and you pull the tube back and then you let it go and they took one step. They walked on like the foam that was egg crate and that. They took two chairs, put one back to back, and you just increased by 2 inches how far you could lean forward before you fell, how far you could forward. 3 simple exercises, decreased falls by 80% in that category of people. But how could those things decrease falling by 80%? Because we don't challenge ourselves. We don't move at all. I mean, we don't do anything as far as it goes. Worst thing we ever came up with was remote control on TV. I mean, at least we got our hinders out of the chair and we went and changed the TV. You know, if I got 120 channels and I got to go through them to find something, man, I'm moving. I mean, that's way cool as far as it goes in that. So again, we stop moving. So whatever, if you can do this, that's way cool. But again, we want motion. Somebody's car is going out here. So again, motion in that. So we want to do everything we possibly can. So we want to come up with creative ways that we can come up with activity. We said to have some high energy activities, we said that some activities, and we have some low activities. But even if I'm in my chair, can I at least every 4 or 5 minutes move some way? And don't think it will make you less productive, it will make you more productive. If you're doing something for long periods of time, we have a phase where we're productive and then we become unproductive. And when we had motion, we have a super wind where we become more productive. So again, we actually become more productive than that. This is something that we want our funnel facing the best way possible in life. We want our funnel facing that we are more likely to have joy, ability to recover, appreciation of beauty, love, kindness, and we want to have few buttons in life that change my world and make me not who I want to be. And motion is one of the things that can make my funnel face the best. We all can do that. And when you start moving, you actually say, you know, I think I want to eat a little bit better. You know, and I want to be a little kinder. And I want to join something. I want to be part of something. And that. So again, motion can help it. We talked earlier about chiropractic. If you Google that, you'll come up with our YouTube page. We have all kinds of tips on there for you. About Chiropractic Facebook. If you see this later, you can watch it. We've had 4,000. That's our max. 4,000 people watch one of these. I'd love to see 5 or 6 or 10,000 watch it because again, way crazy important as far as what we're trying to do. Our contact information. If you text this number, you can then if you say, yeah, I'd like some ball exercise. I'd like some tubing exercises. So if you want the YouTube stuff, then just go to our YouTube page. Then you can find it there, you can get it there. If you want us to send you some videos of exercises, just send it to us. Let us know, and we'll be glad to send it. When you send it, if you could give me a little idea what your health status is. So if couch to 5K, I can give you exercises that are going to be easier for you, or we'll start real easy. And again, don't be embarrassed. I mean, we got to start wherever we start. It doesn't matter wherever we start as far as it goes. So again, thank you tonight for coming. You know, what can we all afford to do? We can move. Even when you're sitting watching the talk tonight, you can move your feet, you can move your toes. Mechanoreceptors sense motion, changes in weight on a joint. And whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm moving my arms, or whatever I'm going, we know that people that twitch way less than people that don't twitch. I mean, my body wants to move. It's made to move. And when we see little kids moving, and we say, man, settle down, sit still. They should be telling, every kid should have a sign to adults. Move, you know, and that. And I said that our last movement in that. If you're not ready for chaos, you're not ready for kids, because chaos is kids in motion with curiosity.
Greatest thing ever for kids. Greatest thing ever. I'm just going to end. There's one, a veterinarian here. They did some studies where they took groups of the dogs and they had a litter. They divided them. And one group they put in sedentary, they not in cages where they couldn't move, but in kennels. And then they put they did free range. They could run all over the place in that. After 6 weeks, they went into training, and the dogs that had 6 weeks of inactivity could never match the dogs that had 6 weeks of activity. We have a magical window from 0 to 12 in children that if we do not engage them in all kinds of activities and challenges, we miss a massive window. We can decrease our depression by 85% if kids have enough positive experience between 0 and 12. It's a magical time. When we make decisions about education, everything we're doing, we have to understand this magical time. How do we come up with reasons to do it? And it's hard. Parents have to get engaged. The best coaches that have the best athletic programs in the state of Wisconsin, high school coaches, their athletes still are moving 50% less than they were before we had this. So ending this, I give you my contact information if we can be of any help. If you have any other organization that you'd like to have this, we're teaching some programs for Head Start, we're teaching some programs for industries. We're trying to get out there and engage in the community. As we want to engage with our patients, we want to engage and do our part in the community to say, and man, there's nothing better. We have some way good talks for you. You'll see some YouTube talks. We try to put 1 or 2 a week on there of just things you can do to take care of yourself. Those are often 5 to 10 minute talks on that. We have some hour talks on there. Our Facebook page is filled with hour-long talks like this one. So thanks for your time. Absolutely, I'm going to ask you as a favor to me, as your kind act, tell somebody about this. Refer and forward on. If you watch our YouTube page, refer those links on, because again, this is a great gift you can give to everybody. So thanks so much for watching tonight.